Hi everybody, Andrew Hutchings with you here today, and I'm not a doctor, but I am looking into the effects of COVID-19 and letting you know about them. So hopefully you saw my last video that COVID-19 may cause reproductive issues in people, and it very well may, well I shouldn't even say may, it really seems to actually do that in some people, a lot of people, who knows how many people, because not everybody is constantly trying to reproduce and measuring their success. But I reran some of the analysis with non-ICU patients, and the results were interesting. I mean, I can't say they're not exactly what I suspected. They're a little different, but pretty much along the lines of what I thought. So whereas in the ICU patients, almost all of the genes that were affected were downregulated for gonadotropin releasing hormone, which is basically what turns on the testicles for men, and it regulates uterus function and the way it makes itself and does things in a woman. If it is turned off or messed up, it can spell serious problems for both men and women if they want to have kids, and for your general well-being. So good news is in the non-ICU patients that it actually upregulated, once again, this one was actually upregulated even in ICU patients, mitogen activated protein kinase 12. But this time it also upregulated anti-Mullerian hormone type 2 receptor and DNA binding protein inhibitor ID2. But it still downregulated nuclear receptor subfamily 4 group A member 1, cytochrome C oxidase subunit 2, and obviously these things do have other purposes besides just gonadotropin releasing hormone, but that doesn't change the fact that they're important for that. And okay, so that was actually the extent of the downregulated one. So it's actually 3 upregulated and only 2 downregulated. That's not bad, but still, do those 2 downregulated ruin everything? Because sometimes it only takes 1 weak link in a chain to destroy a whole chain. And not destroy, well, yeah, to destroy the chain. So yeah, does the downregulation of those 2 things, or even the upregulation of 3 things, because you never know, if something's upregulated, it can also spell trouble. But does this altered gene expression related to gonadotropin releasing hormone spell big problems for people's fertility? And I can't say. It just means that we need to be looking into this more. The interesting thing is it also decreased, hold on a second, it also decreased the replication protein A DNA binding subunit 70 kilodalton 1 and prosaposin, but it increased DNA excision repair protein. I mean, you can speculate as to why that is. There is some logic behind why it may have increased DNA excision repair protein. I'm not going to get into that. And I'm also not an expert on every single gene in the entire human body. I don't think anyone's an expert on every single one, to be honest with you. You can be an expert on a lot of them. You can be an expert on a few of them, but you can't be an expert on every single gene in the entire human body. But it's important to, okay, so summary. In the ICU patients, it downregulated almost all of the, okay, so not that it downregulated every single gene for the gonadotropin releasing hormone, but it downregulated a lot of them. Out of all of the ones that it changed, it downregulated most of them. It also downregulated testosterone biosynthesis gene. It also downregulated glial cell line derived neurotrophic factor. But in the non-ICU patients, it did not downregulate the glial cell line derived neurotrophic factor. It did not downregulate the testosterone 17 beta, something I can't remember right now exactly. And it did not downregulate most of the gonadotropin releasing hormone pathway genes. It did downregulate a couple of them still. That seems like good news overall. The only thing is that this downregulation of genes related to reproductive function is only icing on the cake. I didn't look into this to be the primary cause of reproductive issues. This was just a project I was doing for my university, and I figured I'd look into any additional reproductive issues that could come up due to altered gene expression. Because the initial problems with your reproductive health are, now this is just my opinion and it has been shown, so there is substance behind it, although it's not been announced widely to the public, and is that there is strong inflammatory damage in the reproductive organs. The testicles, for example, have a lot of angiotensin II receptors in there. You know, those ACE2 receptors that you may have heard the virus binds to, and it gets entry, and then it reproduces more, it goes into them again, and so on. Yeah, and there have been cases of orchitis where things are very inflamed and damaged in the testicles. This was also the case with the 2004 SARS outbreak. And I haven't looked too much into what happens with a woman because I'm a man, but I guess I should also look into what happens with a woman because it takes a man plus a woman to have a baby, not just a man. So yeah, luckily the icing on the cake of the reproductive health seems better in people that don't get very sick. And for all we know, people who are asymptomatic have no genetic changes related to reproductive health. I'm not saying they do, I'm not saying they don't, I don't know. I didn't look at asymptomatic people's data, but they may. But in asymptomatic people, hopefully they don't have much inflammation going on. So I'll tell you my hope and my theory. It's just a theory, I'm not 100% sure in it myself, but it's that the reproductive damage roughly correlates to how sick you get from the coronavirus. Because if you don't have much inflammation going on and you don't get sick, like you don't noticeably sick, there shouldn't be much inflammation going on in your reproductive tissues either. Now, there may be that you don't notice. That's why I'm not even so sure in this theory myself, but I do think there's a strong chance and at least a rough correlation. And it's safe to say that somebody who gets very sick is going to, on average, have more damage in their reproductive organs than someone who is asymptomatic. Because the damage comes from the inflammation and that big complex process that surrounds and follows that. So yeah, basically reproductive damage correlates to how sick you get is a decent theory. Please like and subscribe and hit the bell icon for further updates.